Hello, and let's continue the conversation about finding perimeter of compound shapes. This time our shape will look significantly different from the previous examples. In fact, my first question to you would be, what are the two shapes that you think were used to make this one? Pause the video and brainstorm your ideas. Okay, let's compare our results. I bet that some of you said that the shape was made out of a circle and a square. I dare to argue that it is not the fact, and I think that I can prove it to you. If we look into this diagram together. So, let's ask ourselves, what's the diameter of this, what you think is a circle? Some of you said that it's 7, looking at this measure and understanding that the opposite side would also be 7. I agree here because we have clear marks of right angles. Therefore, this part is definitely a rectangle. I cannot say that it's a square until for certain I know what this length would be. So let's think about this length. And the reason I ask you to think about the diameter of your circle is because this length right here would be as big as this width, the maximum width of the circular portion of my diagram, which means that this is the diameter of this circle. So take a look at this fact. I already have a value of 4, but it represents this segment that runs from a point on my purple line to a point somewhere on the curve. This means that 4 represents the radius. I'm going to write this fact down, and I'm going to recall that what this means is that I have this also as a radius that equals 4, and this is also 4. In fact, there will be unlimited number of radii that I could draw on this diagram. All of them would equal 4 units, including a very important radii right here. Well, since this is a 4 and this is a 4, both of them are radiuses, then it tells me that the measure of this full length would be 8, and the opposite side would be 8 as well. Well, if you focus on this quadrilateral, then of course you will now tell me that it wasn't a square, but instead it was a rectangle. Rectangle and a semicircle. So the question is, how do we find perimeter of this shape? So we're going to pause this video and you are going to show the work finding the perimeter of this shape. Make sure you show it step by step so that if you do make a mistake, it's easier for you to find it. So how do I find the perimeter of a compound shape? Recall our previous conversation. We said then that in order to find a perimeter of such shape, you simply need to add together all lengths of that shape as you walk around it. So I will add 7 steps, 8 steps, 7 more steps as I walk around it. And here I'm going to pause and ask you whether I should walk along this curve or along this broken line. To answer this question correctly, you have to remember that on diagram, any lines that are shown as broken lines are not meant to be there. And the reason we show them is to help us find missing information about those sides that matter. So for me, to continue finding perimeter, I have to know enough to include the measure of this curvy length, the length of a semicircle. And I would like to write it down. Perimeter of this shape will equal 7 on the bottom, vertical 8, and then 7 on top. Now, how do I show the length of this curvy region? Well, recall that although it's not a circle, it is half of it. Therefore, I could take my semicircle or divide circumference by 2. So the length of this curvy portion is exactly c divided by 2. It is very important to notice that this value will not be the 4 and it will not be an 8. If you think about it, for this line segment whose measure is 8 units, to be exactly where this yellow curve is, I would have to stretch this broken line outward. And if I stretch it, then its length must be greater than original, greater than 8. And the only way to tell the exact value is to follow the formula of a circumference divided by 2. If you have a habit of working with circles and writing diameter at the same moment when you wrote the radius, then this will not be a challenge. So let's show that fourth length is our circumference divided by 2 and continue with our substitution. It is still a perimeter. These 3 terms simplify as like terms to a 22. And let's not rush through this value. My circumference will be pi d and still would be divided by 2. I will now continue with the substitution. You can try it before I open it on a screen. So it would be 22, and for the fraction, still divided by 2. In the numerator, still the pi, and diameter now is 8. Now, careful. I ask you to simplify this expression to a final result in terms of pi. So please pause your video to do that. And we will compare our results. I hope that your answer was not 26 pi and was not just 26. You had to remember that after you simplified this fraction, which became 4 pi, you still needed to add it to 22. And these 2 terms are not like terms. Therefore, you could not combine them, which means that your answer numerically would look exactly like that, 22 plus 4 pi. And of course, to make it perfect, you have to add your units. Perimeter is calculated in units to the first power, so this is our result. That's it.